So my palms are sweating already.
Hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good. How are
You
you?
want to show him your shirt?
Sure.
We're here for the Philly or who's playing the Eagles pep rally?
Oh.
Are you
I
We're
am.
not here for that. You're this month's Daisy Award winner.
Oh. My palms are sweating, guys.
This is yours. Here, I'm gonna reach you. Come over here with Sue. She's moving away from you, so. So this, I don't know if you remember this patient.
Yep.
Okay.
Sure do.
So this person nominated you, and we got a ton of backup documentation from your leaders as well to endorse this. But I'm going to read your patient's letter. Hello, Susan Sawyer. I just wanted to take a few minutes of your time and let you know how Nicole Martin in the Jefferson ER changed my life. Exactly 1 year ago, I brought my father to the emergency room at Jefferson, not knowing what could happen. Needless to say, it was a traumatizing experience. Nicole Martin did everything she could to comfort me and keep me calm. Although at the time I was alone, I didn't feel like I was because of Nicole. I'll never forget her taking the time to call my brother when I needed him most. I didn't want this to be too long, but unfortunately this past week I had to take my father back to the emergency room. As soon as Nicole entered the room, I was at ease. I explained to her what the last year has been like, and I thanked her for being a part of saving my dad's life exactly 1 year prior. So, Mrs. Sawyer, I just wanted you to know that it's people like Nicole Martin that leave a lasting impression on people during their weakest, most vulnerable moments. I always said it takes a certain kind of person to be able to handle the emergency room, and that is Nicole Martin. I will forever be indebted to her, and I pray for her every night and her children. Thank you so much for your time. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good.
Are you surprised?
I am.
Why?
Well, I just never thought that it would be me to get an award that's so big and prestigious.
Why?
I don't know. I feel like I'm just an ordinary nurse that comes to work and does my job and goes home. I just do what has to be done, and that's it.
And that's award worthy, right? I mean, you remember this patient.
I do.
What was there anything outstanding from your perspective in terms of your care with them? Was she and her family?
No, I just remember her being alone here with her dad, and she was just, very distraught about what was going on, and I just offered to her, like, can I call somebody else from your family so that you're not alone? And she, asked if I would call her brother, and I said, absolutely, just give me your phone or give me the number, whatever you want to do. And I called her brother, and I was like, don't rush, please take your time, I have her for now. And he's like, thank you so much for calling. Like, the whole family was so sweet. Like, everybody was so sweet.
What do you think it was? So she wrote this letter, obviously she remembered you for a really long time. This wasn't just like in the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a year later. She's still talking about you. What do you think it is about you and how you approach your nursing care that had such an impact on them?
I think in that moment she was just, her father has a lot of medical problems, and I think in that moment she was unsure of what, the prognosis would be, and she was just really scared. And I guess me just offering to, get a hold of her family so she wasn't here alone was that's what was important to her at the time. And when she came back a year later, I knew exactly who she was and who her father was. Her father was crying, like hugging me, saying thank you so much. And, they just celebrated Christmas together. He is thriving and doing well.
That's great.
So she was, she of course was, she said, Dad, can I tell her? And they both started crying, and I knew it was coming, so then I started crying. But yeah, they were very appreciative.
Clearly. And she was alone, and I think one of the things she talks about, and you've mentioned, though you're saying you called her brother, one of the things that it sounds like from her letter that made her feel less alone was you.
Yeah, I think until her brother got here, just not being just because she was so unsure of what was going to happen. And, her father was really, really ill, so I think she was just scared, and she didn't want to be alone. So I kind of, I was in the room doing other things too, like nursing care, but stayed with her until her brother was able to come and sit with her at the bedside.
I mean, I think one of the things when you think about presence, right? You can be with somebody or be in a room with somebody and them not really feel like you're with them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You clearly have, the secret sauce in terms of, having people feel like not only are you there and doing what you need to do in terms of your work, but you're with them in it. That's what I heard in her letter was how much she felt like she felt calmer, she felt reassured, she felt comforted because of your presence. She didn't talk about what you did.
Right.
I'm sure you did great things and,
Yeah.
gave her and he great nursing care. But what she talked about was your presence and all the things you did that made her feel better. To the point where when they came back, just all you had to do was walk in.
Yeah.
How long have you been a nurse?
I've only been a nurse. I graduated in 2019, but I worked here as a tech for 10 years prior to that.
Did you work here in the ER?
I did work in the ER. I started at Torresdale, and then I transferred here when I graduated nursing school.
So you've been here since 19?
Since here at Buck since 19.
So so you've been through the ringer.
Yeah.
It's been a rough couple of years,
Yeah,
more
sure.
so than usual.
Yeah.
But what do you think has allowed you, your 4 years, what do you think has allowed you to stay so in tune to what it is that patients need when they're coming to the emergency room, right? Because it's a little bit different than if they're in other areas of the hospital. You clearly have the knack for that.
It is, but I think at the end of the day, everybody is still a person, and they're, here with their family members, and it's probably one of the most vulnerable times in people's lives, and I think that when you experience something in your own life, it kind of then reels you back in. If you're somebody that experiences death or sickness in your family, it kind of brings you back to reality of this is what these people feel when they're at their family's bedside, and it is important to them to be there, and it is important to listen to them and tell them everything you're doing, because at the end of the day, that's still their their family and somebody that they care about. So
that's huge.
Yeah.
And
I think honesty is a big thing. Just being honest with them and open about what's to come, what's next, and if we don't know, say that we don't know. Don't lie, and just try to be open and honest with them, and people are usually more receptive to that than anything else.
I'm sure, yeah, that makes sense. And I think to your point, and and everything everyone has said about you, you're just a cool head, and you're able to go into these circumstances where people are feeling that way, and maybe not in their best moments, but you're able to kind of keep all those things in mind while you're dealing with a difficult situation. How do you do that?
Yeah. I don't know.
How do you not get caught up in the moment, I guess, is the question.
I guess it's definitely something I've always, my dad was in the medical field. My grandparents worked at the hospital as housekeepers, so it's kind of an area that I've always kind of been around. It's just, I never thought about doing anything else. I just never, I don't know, I could never be a waitress, or I wouldn't even know where to start, to be honest. But I was 16, I started as an EMT, and so I did a lot of 911 calls for Bucks County, and so I think that I had several, preceptors and people that watched over me there, and I think that they were an influence on how to keep calm
sure.
and stay, stay centered and grounded, regardless of what the situation is. And I think they had a big influence on me from then, and I just kind of tried to carry that through until now.
Well, you definitely are. You definitely are. What would you say is the biggest difference in terms of your experience as an EMT? I know you were much younger, but in terms of that experience and that kind of work as opposed to working inside the hospital in an emergency department, and what carries over?
I don't think there's, definitely the chaos of it carries over, it's chaos out there, and then sometimes it can get a little chaotic in the ER, but I think that what is similar is, or I guess what's different is that, some people that haven't done EMS don't realize what it's like to go into somebody's house. Like, you're now invited in someone's home, their dogs are barking, their kids are yelling, their loved one is sick, like their sister's calling, like there's all these other factors that factor in, and sometimes it's just, they just get the patient and go, and I don't think that people who haven't done EMS don't know what it's like to be on that side of things. So I often think sometimes I have a little like soft spot for them, just because I know what it's like. I've been there, I've done it, and it's not an easy job, and not everybody would do that job. So give credit where credit's due. I'm a firm believer in that, and it's different in that way for sure. It's a little bit more of a controlled environment here, but at times can definitely get chaotic. So just kind of try to stay like level-headed and prioritize, and get through your shift.
You do a good job of it. If you could give advice to other nurses in terms of how to do what it is that you do, in terms of staying in touch with, what is driving the patient's behavior, what is it that they're experiencing when they're coming through the doors, what would you tell all the rest of us?
I mean, I would really just say that, in terms of care, start with the basics and, work your way up to things that are more complex. Sometimes it's something so silly like the patient's uncomfortable, and that's what is making them agitated. Maybe repositioning them or getting them a blanket. Something as simple as that really can turn a patient around. And then kind of going from the basics to the more complex. And with that being said, still keeping the patient and their family, because they're both going through it at the same time. Keeping them in mind.
That's great advice. So, you said it's important to give credit where credit's due, and that you're only an ordinary nurse just coming to work every day. But I think, today it's our opportunity to give you credit, because clearly you are outstanding. If you ever doubt it, call us. Call me. Call Mrs. Sawyer over there. We'll be happy to remind you, because, you clearly have taken your life experience, whether it's with your family and, how you, were raised and, grew up, to your early work experience. And all of that has formed you into what is obviously an outstanding ER nurse. So thank you. Keep up the good work. We're really happy to have you. And do you want to give people a final?
Yes, go Eagles.
Go Eagles.